Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Texas Outlaw Running Talk Show. This is your host, Briston Rains, and today we have a super special guest on. We're having Rob Steger. He's the Training for Ultra podcast host. He's an ultra marathon runner, book author, filmmaker. He has his own TV show on Amazon of him running 3 200-mile races in the span of 60 days called the Triple Crown. Super awesome guy. But before we hop into that, we do have a Patreon. If you want to help support the show, you can donate $3 a month, and in return, I send you out a handwritten letter, and you get some stickers and some cool stuff like that. So if you want to help out the show, just scroll down and click the Patreon link below. It's just $2 or $3 a month, and it goes a long way. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and scroll down and leave us a 5-star rating, preferably 5 stars. Just go down, leave us a rating, and leave us a review. And if you leave us a review, I'll make sure to mention it on the next podcast. But this is Rob Steger. Rob, so I really want to dig into how this all started. So tell us a little bit of your running story, a little bit, just the beginning of the running life.
I was doing some high stress work, just sitting at a desk constantly. And after college, I found myself weighing 200 pounds, just completely out of shape.
Wow.
And I had all my doctors telling me, like, you got to change. Like, we're going to have to put you on some medications to like lower your blood pressure, like all these kind of health issues. And I was just like, all right, yeah, whatever. Like, they're just trying to get like co-pays out of me. Like, you want to see me every month? Come on, that's ridiculous. Um, and then my dad had a giant health scare where he had what's called a widowmaker, where he had a 99% blockage on the side of your heart that you can't be resuscitated.
Yeah.
So you can have a heart attack. You could have the best trained medics like they're ready, but you just can't be brought back. So he was so lucky he actually went to the doctor, and this is a guy that doesn't have a tendency of going to the doctor very often, and they caught it. That was like my moment of, okay, like maybe these doctors aren't messing with me
Yeah.
to get copays. Like,
Yeah.
and I was on some cheap medical insurance and paying a ton of money per visit. So you know, I was very hesitant to go myself, but yeah, my dad got super lucky, and that's what I call my catalyst. That's like when I started um to take things serious, and I ended up losing 50 pounds. I just was watching Netflix way back whenever, and Joe Cross did this like green diet and lost like a bunch of pounds. I was
Yeah.
like, if it worked for that guy, like I'll try it. It worked for me. And so I started running. I had tried before and I had extreme shin splints, but losing 50 pounds was what it took for me to become a runner, quote unquote. And I just wanted to continue to push myself with distance. I didn't care about speed at all. And I documented a lot of it just
Yeah.
because in the back of my head I was like, maybe this is interesting. I don't really know. But when I started inspiring other people and getting feedback that I was changing other people's lives, that's when I took documenting my running like a little bit more serious. Because I mean, me changing myself is one thing, but if I can help others, that's like a whole different ball game, and that's what it became all about.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, um, wow. Yeah. So whenever you started to make that change and you started running, when did you really start falling in love with the whole trail and ultra running scene and getting involved with that?
It took a while. I had started running after losing weight,
Yeah.
and I had it all taken away from me. And I needed some. insoles in my shoes. So my wife bought me this gift card out of the blue one Christmas, and I went to the running shop. They put me on their treadmill and they're like, "Oh, dude, like you need insoles. Like your feet are, you have like a collapsing arch or whatever it was."
Yeah.
And it corrected it, and then I could run. But I was also like, I had this joy for a few months, then it was ripped out of me,
Mm.
and I never want to lose it again. And while I was like in that run shop, I think someone was saying like, should try the trails. Like there's a local trail. It's a little softer surface and running on concrete and all the sidewalks and stuff. So I was like, well, I found this thing that puts my life in perfect balance. I never want to lose this again. And then I met like I went out for one trail run, one Rocks and Roots course in Columbus, Ohio. And at the very end of that run, that was maybe I totally forget, maybe 10 miles or something. I happened to meet the race director of the race that was taking place like the next week or two. And he's like, we're like pretty much sold out, but just email me. I'll take care of you.
That's
Like, we'll
awesome.
figure this out.
Yeah.
And yeah, from there, Andy, I think Andy Henderson, and he has a brother. They're both like 6'5", just enormous humans. Um, from there, I mean, I love that experience of being out in the trail and being in the wild. It
Yeah.
was totally new to me.
Yeah, you just fell
Yeah.
in love with it. Yeah, it's funny when I tell a lot of people about trail running, you like took interest when you heard about it. When I tell a lot of people about trail running, they're like, you run on hiking trails, like they think I'm crazy whenever I talk about trail running. So I think it's interesting how you were like immediately intrigued and just pulled into it. First
It
time I
was
ran on
more
trails, I
like
was like,
mud for me, but
yeah. Yeah, the first time I remember the first time I was running on trails, I was like, why do people do this? You're going like 15-minute pace going up through roots and rocks and stuff like that. But
yeah.
yeah, just like yourself, I ended up falling in love with it as well. So that's
I've
awesome.
heard the same thing about Texas though. Like I've heard the trail running community is growing,
Yeah.
and there is a part of it, but like most people are like, what are you doing out there? Like
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
hot a lot of times, and yeah.
Yeah. And we don't really have any crazy long trails like a lot of the western states do. Like they have these like 50, 100-mile long trails. I think longest one we got's maybe if you go down to the south, to like that national park down there. I can't think of what it's called. But yeah, if you go down there, there's like 50, 100 miles worth of trail. But everywhere else, it's like 10 miles worth of trail or something like that. So,
I mean, I started on the only trail in the entire city, basically. Like, there's obviously more trail than that, but the Rocks and Roots
yeah,
Trail in Columbus, Ohio is like this
it
little
was,
figure eight.
yeah.
And Andy, the race director, basically developed half of the course
Oh, wow.
himself
Yeah.
with some volunteers and that whole group. So just because it's a small trail doesn't mean it can't inspire like bigger things. And you never know, like you could get a connector put in eventually and it all of a sudden opens up to something special. So
Yeah. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. So when did you start the whole Training for Ultra podcast? I mean, I think you've been around for quite a while. What made you want to start getting out and putting out content and stuff like that?
I mean, it's crazy to be considered like an OG in this because I was a newbie. I was very new. I just moved to Denver. I think I was like maybe 2 years into running.
What year was this?
2017.
Oh, okay,
Like
2017. Yeah.
so I think I started training for ultra like maybe the very end of 17 or the very beginning of 18.
Yeah.
And it was one of those I had learned not to fear failure at all. So it's like I'm listening to podcasts. They're talking to, really great people, but I mean, I would ask a lot of those same questions and then I'd take the conversation like this way
Yeah.
or whatever. Like I just wanted to put my own kind of not spin. I wanted to take conversations a little bit differently, and I got kind of bored of asking the same freaking questions or like hearing that. And
Yeah.
I wanted to just change it up a little bit. So I am not scared of failure.
That's awesome.
That's my biggest lesson of trail running is like DNFs should be celebrated as long as you're learning something from the mistakes made or whatever happened. As long as you're learning from failure, it's not really a failure in my head. It's just part of the process.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, your podcast has gone all the way to interviewing Elliot Kipchoge. That blew up. That went everywhere. I remember seeing that,
Thanks, man.
and your numbers just going like crazy. And that was awesome that you were able to interview Elliot Kipchoge, and get to that point. So yeah, you
So
come a long
believe it or
ways.
not, like I was beyond 1 million downloads before that. So
Really,
yeah, his episodes maybe top 10 of all times, but
really.
um yeah, that was a special one.
Yeah,
That probably ruined my Leadville 100 race a little bit, but
yeah,
that
yeah.
was worth it.
Yeah. Who's like the most interesting guest you've had on your show? You've had a lot of really you had like Courtney DeWalter on, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
You've had like a lot of the big running people in the running world. Who's one of the most interesting ones that you've run into?
I love talking to Tom Foreman.
Tom Foreman,
He's
huh?
like he's breaking news, CNN, like he's like that guy.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, before we go on, it's him, Dean Karnassus, and this is episode 4. Uh what is it? Homeless to 100 episode. And like Tom's like, North Korea is shooting off missiles right now. Like there's a pretty good chance I might have to just take off mid interview. And
Well,
then like we get Dean Karnassus to like call in. He's out on a call, like or on a run during the call. So you like hear the wind and everything. And then we got
yeah,
Chris, who's like super inspiring guy now in Breckenridge, who's
yeah,
homeless and he's like broken through and he's training for a 100 miler. But yeah, Tom Foreman's an interesting guy,
yeah.
and there's so many others. I know CNN in Texas, like maybe that wasn't the best pick, but um, like there's so many. Uh, I could just yeah, we could spend a whole episode talking about each guest, and
Yeah.
I get inspiration from the winners of races, like the fastest superhumans, like a Courtney DeWalter. I get inspiration from middle of the pack guys that just have great stories, and even back of the pack, last person to finish, most time on their feet. Like
Yeah.
inspiration doesn't know what place you took in a race.
Yeah. So is that what
That's what I'm
inspired you?
all about.
Is that what inspired you to do the what'd you do? You did 4 200s, right? 4 200s
I've
and one.
done 4, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is that what made you want to do that triple crown? Do you want to tell the guest a little bit about that feat and what made you want to do that? It's a little crazy. I can't believe that you did that, but you want to tell them a little bit about it.
Yeah, so my book kind of goes over the first 4, I think it's 4 years. I can't even remember. Post COVID, I'm like, I don't know what day it is. Um, but I do CCC. I flew out to Europe, did maybe one of the hardest 100K races, one of them. Uh, Fly back. I do Moab 240. Candace Burt, race director, gives me the go ahead. I'm like, I'm super thankful. Like, I will not take this for granted. Finished that, and it was a life changing experience. One that I end my book on, but I also found myself running the longest foot race in the United States at that time. So 240 miles, and just looking for like what's next, what inspires me to train, eat healthy, and just like continue with trail running and ultra running. And beyond just doing Moab 240, it was like, all right, like I got a taste of that. How do you do Bigfoot 200, Tahoe 200, and then Moab 240, all within kind of like a 65-day window?
Wow.
Like, how do you recover from a 200, let alone then go do another one? recover again, and then do just like 240.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, by the way, everyone listening, I want y'all to know y'all can watch this whole thing on Amazon. I watched it like a year and I think it was a year ago, year and a half ago. I watched it, and this guy goes and runs all of these 200s and got it all on video. It's insane. So go,
you see the highs and the lows.
yeah, yeah, definitely, you
We
definitely,
don't hide anything.
yeah. Weren't you like, weren't you at one point like late to one of the races and you had to run to it?
We hit like traffic, and it
Yeah.
was an hour delay. And I've done enough of these races knowing like you're not going to show up 45 minutes before a 200-mile race. Like it's
Yeah.
ideal to show up like 15 minutes, check in. Like that's tops. Like you don't want to even 100-mile, even a 50K. Like I'll show up to 50K like 10 minutes before, but we hit traffic that stopped us like an hour.
Yeah.
So once again, Candace, the race director, was like, "Oh, you're 45 minutes late to the start line. Here's a GPS tracker. Be safe. Don't miss the first cutoff."
Nice.
It's like awesome. That's the way trail running should be. It's
Yeah.
it's like, you're doing a 200 miler not to compete.
Yeah.
And if you're doing a 200 miler to compete, you're either already an elite that runs for a living or completely misguided and like not. I mean, there's maybe one or two people that compete that aren't almost an elite runner. I mean, most 200 milers are like a lifetime achievement
Yeah.
that should be cherished, and there's no clock at the finish line. Like, no one, almost no one, ever asks you, like, hey, what was your finish time, like at Moab 240?
Yeah.
And like, ironically, it was almost exactly 4 days, 96 hours the first time. And
Yeah.
then it was almost exactly, it was 84 hours and like 45 minutes. But like, there's so many variables that take place at a 200. It's exciting. It's not just like, here's the course, like just cover the course, because there's so many external variables. There's so many times when you, the runner, messes something up and has to correct it. It becomes a true adventure, shared adventure a lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah. Three 200s in the span of 60 days. How did you even train for something like that? Like what was the prep for that?
I mean, I didn't know. And I
Yeah.
think it was well, I did Moab the second year it ever been done, and then also the third year. There's just not that many people, at least when I started, that had done more than 10 200s. And like those, a lot of those runners had been doing lifetime miles,
Wow.
like the
Yeah.
accumulation. What I told myself and what I've kind of concluded is like, on a whim, can you just go run 100-mile race and not completely get destroyed?
Hmm.
You're gonna bonk, likely at least once.
Yeah.
Um, but on a whim, can you go run 100 miles? And if you say yes, and it's like a reasonably difficult 100, then you're probably ready to try a 200. If you've never run a 50K and you're expecting to run the entire time for like Moab 240, like,
Yeah.
no, you're setting yourself up for a big disappointment.
Yeah. So has anyone else ever done that before? Done the Triple Crown?
Um, there's been, I mean, there's a lot less people that have done the Triple Crown than summited Everest or whatever. Like,
Oh wow. Yeah.
it's same with Badwater. There's probably more Badwater finishers in the triple. I would say, I don't think I was one of the first 100 people to do it. I think I was probably within the first 200 people to do the
Wow.
triple. But
Yeah.
it depends. Like, there's some years technically there was a Triple Crown way back when the Colorado 200 was still a thing. So
Yeah.
it's not like a perfect comparison, and every year is different. So every race is different. Like Moab, when you're running for multiple days, just think like a 50K if it rains versus like a perfect ideal 50K day. How do you compare times?
Yeah.
But then multiply that and stretch it out to 244 miles.
Wow.
You can't, it's so hard to compare over time.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did your body hold up after that? After doing all those races?
Really well.
Really?
It was shocking.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean it's in the TV show like you said, but I would do a race and honestly the majority of my time I was power hiking.
Yeah.
I would run the free miles. I would suffer a lot of the miles, but I mean, as to be expected for 3 to 4 day efforts, you're gonna have lows once or twice. Um, I would take at least a week off after each race,
Yeah.
but then magically I'd come back after eating probably way too much ice cream or whatever,
Yeah.
because you're just burning so many calories. I was setting like 10K PRs and stuff, and part of that was just
Wow.
like, my base was, yeah, I'm not a professional athlete. People when they turn on a TV show, they expect to see like a professional, and this is my hobby. I'm just trying to inspire
That's
people.
awesome, man. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I was coming back and I was throwing down like pretty quick miles.
Yeah.
And after all of the Triple Crown, most importantly, the 401k for pediatric cancer,
Yep.
which is Moab 240, and raising $70,000 for Celia, who is now healthy, by the way, and
Awesome.
has beat cancer.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah, I did across the years. I was running like 830 miles. It, it's a complicated story there, but I was running just like as best as my body could handle. Like my 5K PR, I went to my parents' house the following like March or February, March, and I did 6:30 pace for the 5K.
Wow.
And I distinctly remember running 15, 16-minute miles when I started,
Yeah.
and my heart rate monitor going nuts and just questioning like everything, being like, there's no way I'm a runner. Like I was running a lot of days, but I did not feel like a runner. And ironically, those slow grinding hike miles, I think just takes your body to like a whole different level.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it has to make a huge base, a huge foundation for you from like there on after. And honestly, if you were to do like some crazy race right now, you would have that base and that foundation still in your legs, and you'd be able to do probably really well at it. With that, is there another big feat ahead, or have you done another big feat since that?
So I COVID messed with a lot of my
Yeah,
training routines like everyone else out there.
yeah,
You know, I look at 2020, I'm like, like my training routine got out of whack, but no close relatives died. Like my family's healthy. I'm thankful for that. I really prioritize family, and my running for the Triple Crown, I was taking all my vacation time just to do the triple. So like ironically, my life's in perfect balance now, but like that perfect balance isn't going to like have me running a 84-hour Moab 240. Like maybe if that was my only race, but like at the end of the Triple Crown, if I were to do the triple next year, I don't think I can peak out at that level. Um, but I I'm happy, and the goal of all of this is to inspire people. And I know, just like during a race, when you hit the lowest point, you have to remind yourself this is a low, this is temporary, this will pass. Because a lot of people think when you hit lows, it's permanent and will last forever. 2020 is my low. I've come my recent low, I would say, obviously, since becoming a runner. And since then, I paced Dion Leonard at Badwater 135 in Death Valley, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Like,
Yeah.
this is something I thought was impossible. And then, like, as I'm studying it and learning it and realizing how to train, and Dion had an awesome race. I think he took sixth overall. Uh, I'm thinking, like, yeah, that sounds interesting. So right now, I'm like sitting on my hands, ready to start training for the Keys 100, which is all like road concrete, hot, Texas style, probably running. It's just going to be torturous for 100 miles.
Yeah.
And, if I get into bad water and I have a successful Keys 100, I'm like right there. I'm prepared to like have a great bad water. I only want to do that race probably once to give other people the opportunity. That's what I keep going back and forth. I love Moab 240. I've been there every year, either pacing, crewing, whatever.
Yeah. I saw you just paced that one girl. What's her name?
Lucia, yeah, Dion's wife.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw
Um,
you paced her.
it kills me. I want to sign up for that race. I want to sign up for the lottery,
You're
but I
insane,
don't
dude.
want to take someone's dream race away from them.
Yeah.
So like I keep going back and forth, like, am I gonna be selfish? Like I don't know what to do.
That's an
But
awesome
I
quality.
also have UTMB. I have like a free entry right now
Yeah,
for next year. So
that's awesome.
it might be too much. I'm trying to learn from previous, just overdoing it, not focused on family. But Badwater UTMB, like hardest road 135, probably the hardest 100-mile race, arguably mountainous,
Yeah.
is UTMB. It's more like 108 miles or something.
Yeah.
That juxtaposition, like, that has me really interested, but I'm still going back and forth on that. Plus Moab, like, I'd like to do Keys 100, Badwater, Moab 240, and just that would be a great 2022.
Do you ever take yourself outside of your ultra trail running perspective and put yourself into a person who doesn't do ultra and trail running and think how insane you sound sometimes? Talking about all these 200 miles, like, yeah, I'll go do the Badwater 135 and this 200 miler. Dude, like, it sounds insane from the outside perspective or someone who just is into, the road marathons and doesn't even know trail running
I mean,
exists.
I wrote a book on it.
Yeah.
I've been there, and it all starts with like one day at a time,
Yeah.
building consistency. And yes, I I do I do realize that it might sound a little crazy, but I don't I don't do this for like the viewer's pleasure or whatever. Like I don't go out to do races to um get likes on social media or whatever it is. Like
Yeah.
I go out to do this to inspire myself to stay focused on food and my training. And once you keep ratcheting things up, if you're thinking about it long term, it's hard to balance staying motivated to keep that stuff in check. So for me, like, I besides running across the United States, there's not really many races out there where I'm like, oh, I wonder if I could actually do that. Like, if I have the time and the resources, I've concluded I can basically go after any kind of running task.
Yeah.
Um, and if you want to test that, if you have a very wealthy Texas viewer listener, like, put up some cash. I'll quit my job. It'll have to be substantial cash, and I'll go run across the Sahara or something stupid. Like,
Yeah.
there truly is no limit to the potential of a lot of us. It's the realization that like failure is part of the process, and that with the proper training, and if you're planning things out correctly, like, you literally can do anything. You can run any distance. Now, can I run a sub 2 hour marathon? No, like that
A little
that
bit of a different
that's
game.
that's stupid. I don't have the mechanic, I wasn't born in Kenya at like 8,000 feet or whatever. Like, I respect that aspect of like no limits, but that's a totally different realm of what I'm talking about. It's more like, can I run across the United States? Yes. Like, how am I going to do that? Like that, as long as it's like a reasonable benchmark, I truly think a lot of us are capable of so much more than we'd ever realize.
Yeah, yeah. I think when it comes to endurance running, um, in all honesty, if you put a challenge in front of somebody, there's a way to complete it. If you did running from Canada all the way down to South America, someone could probably do it. It'd take them, probably quite a few years, but they could do it. And it's truly amazing to see how far people push themselves, and even yourself, and how much you've really inspired so many other runners to go out and do feats like that. And it's really interesting on the psychology behind it, like what makes someone do that. What makes somebody go and push themselves to those limits. And like for you, what's your like deep down, like why do you do it?
It's a good question. I mean, it's a process that, so most people, I think, they get into running and they have their why.
Yeah.
They're like, this is it. It's A, B, or C, or whatever it is. They're not reevaluating their why. And so your why it's a moving target. It's always changing. I don't care who you are, even if you live in the same house, do the same routines, like you're still aging, your why is still going to be changing. So my why is ever evolving. And I think it's important to harness your why and know like what is making you jump out of bed, get excited to go on that training run when there's fresh snow on the ground, which probably aren't familiar with. Um,
Once every 3 years, yeah. Once every
or
3 years.
let's go the opposite. Like when it's 120 out and you
Yeah.
only have that lunch run available, like how are you gonna take care of yourself? Like how are you gonna get fluids and not get hurt? Um, but like it's relative to the individual. So what motivates me is trying to do things that I seriously thought either were like stupid, impossible, whatever it is. And now I'm like, I see that. Like Badwater, I literally have told people for like the first 3 years of running, I'd love to do any of these ultras except for Badwater. That's stupid. Like who would do that? And now I've run probably 20 miles on that course and I'm like, I love it. I love the people. I love the community. I love the challenge. Like, I want to do Badwater. Like, I thought that was the one race. It was so stupid. I would never do it. And I guarantee you I'll sign up for, or at least I'll put my application in to try to do it. And so maybe your personal Badwater is a 10K PR time, or maybe it's like going to a big city like Tokyo. Like I really want to go explore the city of Tokyo with my wife and then do that marathon. Like it doesn't matter what your why is. It's going to be different for each and every one of us,
Yeah.
but it's important to reevaluate it every now and then, know that you're running for a good reason, that you're not just like grinding out miles and torturing yourself. As long as it's like a healthy why, i'm I'm as excited for someone like going after their 5K PR or wherever, like, or doing the AT, like, you know, over 2,000 miles. Like I don't, from my perspective though, my why now shifted after doing Moab 240 the first time into like, yes, I want to inspire myself to stay healthy, but I also want to motivate and inspire other people to like get after it and show them I'm a normal dude. I have 2 kids, full-time job, balancing everything as best as I can. I'm messing up a lot of times, but I'm a normal dude. And if you're a normal person, you're capable. If I can do this, if I can lose 50 pounds and find myself at the start line of 200-mile races because my why was driving me to see how far I could run,
Yeah.
you can do it yourself. You can get after whatever motivates you. Just stop caring about what other people think. Like, don't care about failure. Like, no one on your social media, like, really is following as closely as you think they are.
Yeah.
And just like find a why that's important. And the real breakthrough for me personally was I'm doing this for more than myself. So once you start running for a purpose that's like bigger than just personal motivation, that's a super powerful moment. But start with just what's going to get you out of bed every day to build consistency to get after whatever that goal is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with that, there's also the why not. Like, why not? There's nothing stopping you
Totally.
from going out your door right now and running 30 miles, like there's nothing stopping you. Like, why not? Just do it for fun. Sometimes,
Life's too short. I mean, I don't talk about it very often, but early on I had a few close friends die in car crashes, and it's like life is so short,
yeah,
even for us lucky ones that, make it to live to be 85 or whatever it is. That happens in the blink of an eye. And like, is history really going to look for the 23rd finisher of this local trail run? Whatever. No, no, like, do it to make yourself happy. Try to motivate, inspire others as you're doing it, and just have perspective. Like,
yeah,
I in 19 October 19 finishing Moab 240, tagging on extra miles, doing a 401k, and raising money for pediatric cancer was like, wow. Like, here's this little girl dealt the worst cards you can be dealt, like cancer of the brain that doesn't go away with first treatments, going through hardcore chemotherapy. Like, how can you complain about much? Like, there really isn't that much you can complain about compared to what Celia was battling. So,
yeah,
just life's so short. Like, stop these little arguments about let's run.com comment boards or whatever it is. Like, just
yeah,
just come on, guys. Let's have fun.
yeah. I mean, it's really important to look at it from an outside perspective. And how I see it is we're on this floating ball in the middle of space, and we're all a
Exactly.
bunch of these humans, and all things will pass. Yeah, there's big history events that happen. People want to go down in history, but in 1,000 years from now, no one's gonna remember those people. Um, unless it's like
It's hard.
huge, huge figures. But all things
None.
will eventually pass though, and
Yeah,
so um, just enjoy what you can now and make the most of it and just go for crazy things. There's nothing stopping you. And a lot of people set these limits for themselves and these barriers that either society puts in them or their parents or friends. And it's just like, no, like just block that out. Like just try it.
that's where it all started. I literally had the very similar thought in Dean Karnassis's book. I love Dean. Some people are like, oh, he like ruined trail running, whatever, because he's so popular. I love the guy, but he had one phrase where he unlocked the concept of limits for me.
Mm.
So like him saying that it's kind of what is a limit, I think is kind of essentially what he had been asking. And it was I mean the outcome was, oh, like these are self-imposed limits. Like you're it's societal and it's also internal. Like you set limits on yourself, and if you're able to actually change how you mentally perceive that limit, then all of a sudden you unlock a lot. And that's honestly that's
Yeah.
what I've done with running.
Yeah, and hence the motto, break the limits. I had to pull this out. I have this flag here. It says break the limits. I have 100 of them,
Let's
by the
see.
way.
Let's see. Let's
Yeah,
see. I couldn't
here,
see
let
the
me.
full thing.
All right,
Is there a
YouTube
logo
viewers.
on there, or is it just break the
No, I
limits?
just break the limits.
Sweet.
So YouTube viewers, y'all gonna get to see this podcast. Y'all gonna have to go and watch it on YouTube if y'all want to see this. But let me
It's a
pull.
limited edition run. Only 100 of these are available. That's cool. I like it.
Yeah, it's a big break the limits flag. But when I was coming up with a motto, because it's Texas Outlaw and outlaws, break the laws, I was like, I don't want people, breaking the laws. So I was like, what's something they can break? And I was like, why? And then I went into the whole mind thing of the limits and breaking the limits. And I was like, oh, break the limits. So that's how that came about. But
I
yeah,
mean, support this guy. This is an inspirational story in itself. Like
I appreciate it, man.
he's doing college, he's doing interviews, he's running like putting on races, he's designing flags for you guys in Texas. Like, support
Thanks, man.
this guy. Like, the least you can do is buy his flag, unless it's like $1,000, and then I'm like, no,
It's on
that's
sale for
not correct.
$15. TexasOutlawRunning.com/shop. $15. Get yourself a flag.
$15. Support this guy.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
I'm just doing what I love, man. This is all fun for me. It's just a game. So
So what you don't realize is I have made break break the limit, or break, what is it?
break the limits.
Break the limit flags like yourself, except I don't talk about them anymore. They failed hard. I've put out like products after product
Yeah.
after like idea after idea. I put out a calendar. I think I sold like 12 of them. I still have a stack of 20 in my garage.
Yeah.
They're like 2020 calendars. Um but like, my fear of failure is zero. I put out a water bottle. I ordered 400 water bottles.
Yeah. And you think they're
And
gonna go like sell it crazy, and then
what's I mean, you start looking at the business of it, and it's like, okay, like 200 or 400, like, I don't know. But
yeah.
but I've reached the point where, and a lot of this is because of the supporters. So truly, like, when you buy his flag, like, you're not just buying his flag, you're letting him explore like creative outlets, maybe put on a different race. Like, this isn't just $15 that like he's gonna pocket or whatever. Like, it all rolls. And I don't go around saying this, I've never taken $1 from training for ultra. So like, there's been zero electricity bills that I've paid with money from this whole thing. And so like, when you hear sponsors on the podcast, when you see them like before the TV show, all the TV book royalties, what I've decided at this point is I want to roll it forward and put it into more inspirational content. So
Yeah.
like, if I sell a hat, if I sell whatever, like, I'm not paying bills with that. I am doing my best to go explore inspirational content as best as I can. And the only goal is to inspire people. So um everyone's different. And if you're putting on races, I can't even imagine the expenditures there. I'm
Yeah.
maybe gonna try to do that next year, but
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. Like I think it's like it goes for a lot of people in the running community, but like it's hard to make any profit in the trail running community. And like you said yourself, I haven't pocketed anything, and it all just goes right back into um,
it's awesome.
expanding the community, and going into new projects and just trying to expand the whole running community. Because the whole reason behind this is to get people into trail running from road running, and just to expand the running community and create a little one within itself. And it all goes straight back into
It's
um,
beautiful, man.
yeah, yeah,
Because I mean, there's not many professionals. The whole like architecture of our community is not really for profit, or it's just not designed. It's so like, I don't know, asymmetrically like set up that in a sense it's good because races pop up sometimes they're great, they last a while, sometimes they don't. A lot of times that race director is the heart of the race. Like without the race director being around anymore, sometimes that race just doesn't have the same vibe ever again.
Yeah.
And there's obviously exceptions to that, but it's our community is it's people. Like if I've learned one thing, I've gone to races, and I'll be honest, I went to Bandera 100K in Texas. I kept my head down. I want to just finish a race, get my qualifier, kind of fly in, fly out business trip.
Yeah.
Wasn't that fun? It wasn't memorable. I got pulled over too when I left the race.
by
Sucked.
by
I
highway state
those
patrol or
guys.
something
Oh
like that.
boy.
State
And I respect those police officers a lot. And
yeah.
they didn't give me a ticket either, which is awesome. But I mean, I've done the business trips. I've done the races where I'm like super prepared for the race, and I'm just like, I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna
Yeah.
talk to every person I can meet out there. I'll tell you, hands down, the best memories are not the PRs or the races that go perfectly. It's the ones where like you embrace the community, you meet all these people, and I've yet to meet an ultra runner that's not inspiring. Like there's truly that's what keeps my podcast going is every single ultra runner I've ever met has an inspirational story if you dive deep enough.
Yeah.
It's just like, is that person going to share it or not? That's a big question. And how much are they going to share?
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone has a story. But there's just something about ultra runners that there's just it takes a lot. Something um really crazy had happened in their past, or something had happened to ignite that fire in them for them to do what they do, you know. And
Yes, totally agree.
um,
I'm convinced like there's this like stigma like every ultra runner has like been broken and like why like they're putting in their miles because like something like horrible happened in their lives. Like, what are you running away from? Blah blah blah. Like, um, I've met that population. There is 100% uh, those ultra runners out there, but that's not all of the community. Like, there's so many just like great moms, dads, whatever, like people just trying to push their limits
yeah,
that like maybe aren't reading every page of Ultra Runner magazine. Like it like there are all kinds of stories, and you know what, the broken ones that find something in the distance and everything, it's great because there's other people like in the community that they can relate to and become good friends with. So you share more than 20 miles with someone out on the trails, it's hard not to like always be friends with those type of people. Like it's
yeah,
immediate bond. And yeah, it's such a great community. Some of the smartest people on the planet, by the way. Like some of these ultra runners that I've met, trail runners,
yeah,
PhDs, just stupid smart people. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, they're just exploring. I just feel like there reaches a point um, with I think curiosity is one of the main drives for ultra running. Just going into the unknown. It's all unknown, and there's nothing
totally.
more fun than going into the unknown. So, um,
That's what drove me, man. That
yeah,
how far can I go? Stupid question.
yeah, yeah. Do you think there will ever be a a roof to it all? Um, I mean, there's so many races out there that you can't run every race, but do you think you're ever gonna run into like a top, like, okay, like I did all the big races, did all the big distances. I think I'm good now. Do you think that that'll ever happen?
uh Yeah, if I ran across the United States, I
Yeah,
think that would be for me personally kind of like the top of what how far can I run? I want to eventually do that. Like when the time is right, um I had sponsorship sign off for this idea, um and it was in the works in 2020. That was going to be my follow up to Triple Crown. and I realized like, all right, this is getting like out of control. Let's take a step back. And then like COVID hit and forced it to shut down, basically, for me at least. Um, so for me personally, like in terms of how far can I run, I I think that is a great end like topper. I would love to do it on the trails as opposed to everyone else doing it on the roads. I think it'd be a lot harder, it'd be a lot longer, but I think a trail run from coast to coast would be really, really cool. But I don't the trail running and ultra running community is like a living organism. It's always changing. There's always something. There's weather that causes stuff to erode. You know, you can run the same trail every day, and it's going to be a different trail actually over time. Or even if the trail's perfectly consistent, like you hit it at a different time, there's different cloud cover, the sun hits it, the light hits it differently. There's always inspiration in that beauty of nature. And I think the organized trails, the organized trail races, I think we take for granted a little bit. I think they're more dynamic than we all realize. Like the heart of a race is a lot of times that race organizer or the volunteers or whatever it is, the trail maintenance that a lot of us don't do enough of. And it it can evaporate quickly. And as we saw with all these fires out west, like
Yeah.
race cancellations with COVID, all of a sudden, like what we're taking for granted every year, that perfectly organized race, like for whatever, whether it be financial, because a lot of these race organizers, I'm not pointing to you because you're college dude. Um, they're they don't understand finance. Like they're not like, oh, I need to optimize my capital structure to like whatever. Like they have no idea. And then they hit a year where COVID crushes all of their races. And so now they're like, well, I got these credit cards that I levered up my company to get through this. Like, how are we gonna make this work? And now the cost of aid stations and the food that goes in there, it's like 20% higher. But I already took prepayment for all these races like 2 years ago. Like, oh, so like let's not take these organized races for granted. They're a living thing. They can die quickly if we're not careful. And I do think that the evolution of us trail runners and ultra runners is going towards looking after the trails a little bit better. I mean, I'm guilty of this. I think we're all guilty of this. Like if we're using the trails every day, like can we take one trail run day and just like pick up trash or like try to like cut back some brush or like maintain the trails just a little bit better? I think we can, and I'm not going to go old school like what was it, 2018 or 2019, the Outside Magazine like article that pissed everyone off. I don't think we're what was it, like parasites or something?
What was it about?
It was like trail runners are parasites. Like none of us do trail work, and all the mountain
Oh.
bikers do all the work. I think we're all in this together. We're
Yeah.
all enjoying the trails, and like we do need to start thinking just a little bit more about it. We don't need to go overkill, but you know, if we're gonna enjoy these trails, like come on guys, like one day of the year, one. Like let's start with that. If you're gonna run every day on them.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. All the races that I've put on, I've always donated back towards the trail maintenance. I just don't have time to always do it. I'm actually going to be doing some tomorrow, some trail maintenance out there. It is a lot of hard work out there, but one thing I saw that I really appreciate people do in these running groups here in like the Dallas area is that they do like these volunteer trail maintenance event groups on Facebook, and they all go out and do some trail work and help out the local trails. And it's just really cool. And yeah, it's something that we can do definitely a lot better from within our community. It does seem like a lot of the bikers are the ones out there doing a lot of the work. It just
They
depends where
they
you're at.
I mean, they also beat the hell out of the trail. So
Yeah,
it's
they
like,
do.
all right,
That's
like,
true.
my few footprints, like on a random muddy day, like, okay, compared to like, the bikes, but we're all beating up the trails. We all have
Yeah,
to take care of them, and
yeah,
like it's silly to like point the blame at one side or the other because in reality, this is a niche group of any people that are using the trails, like hiking. I don't care what you're doing on the trails. You're like, we're already a niche group, so
yeah.
like we're in this together. And like you said, we're all on this rock flying through space, and it's like,
Crazy thought.
come on, like just, but I do think I think group runs are really inspiring to like build consistency. And I think organizing small little community events like fixing up the trails, it can be fun. Like it can be like if you're new to a city and you're trying to meet people and like you like the social aspect of this, and it's an awesome opportunity. So like just try to make it more than, hey, we're gonna like take trash bags out and like clean trails all day or whatever. Like make it fun. And it's just like that on your hard long training efforts. Like if you
Yeah,
want to make it a sufferfest, you can easily go out there with the mentality and mental, like how you frame this mentally as like just uncomfortable and horrible, or like really a lot of the breakthrough in ultra running and trail running for myself is like, how am I mentally framing this? This is a challenge. This is going to be fun. Like I
yeah,
have an awesome team of people that I get to hang out with. Like I get to hang out with these people for 2 days and
yeah.
they're helping me. Like this is awesome. So a lot of it's just how you mentally frame it, and you make of it what you do. Like you can see beauty, or you can see just like utter like torture cleaning up trash.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I think it's getting time to where we wrap it up. But before we wrap it up, I always ask a couple questions. I'll ask you one of them. So let's say you can only choose one song for the rest of your life to listen to while you're on runs. What would that one song be?
Oh boy. And by the way, I thought this was just like the first 20% of this interview. We're not going like super long form, Rogan style,
Hey,
set 6
when's
hours.
your when's your cutoff time? When's your cutoff time for it?
I'm just, yeah, when this beer runs out.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I mean, we can keep going. I can run it.
I'm joking. Um, I have no cutoff time for you, by the way. What you're doing in Texas is awesome.
Appreciate that, man.
And so if I had to listen to one song, um, that's a good question. Right now, my favorite vinyl record is The Killers. Like, I don't know why. It just brings back good memories. So I think I'd try to like sneak out I don't know, a record player and play some old school like vinyl stuff. So
Yeah.
I really like Hendrix. I don't know why, but I can also listen to like Dead Mouse and like, yeah, like I have a very eclectic musical taste that probably rubs people the wrong way a lot of times because it's just so
Yeah.
out there. But
Yeah. That's
I'm also kind of an artist, so I see the beauty in every kind of like musical composition.
yeah. Yeah. And yeah, well, I mean with that perspective, the artist perspective, you see art in everything. There's art in race directing, running. I honestly I see running as an art form almost. It's because art is how you express yourself, and I feel like a lot of people express themselves through running. So
Yeah, I've talked a lot about art with some of my interviewees, like our artists themselves, like someone like a Brittany Charbonneau.
yeah,
It is like an actor and an artist, truly. And I think art is when you share something and it like provokes like a response from the viewer of some sort, some kind of emotional response. You don't have to be like predictable and having a background in like large abstract
Yeah.
oil paintings, like sometimes I can try to provoke an emotion and people are like, what the hell is that? So like,
Yeah.
but the fact that they're actually thinking and looking at it closely is evoking stuff. So, I mean, we're not going into art 101, what is art, but um I love it. And yeah, running uh Danny Moreno, I think, is a pretty fast, great runner for rabbit. And we talk about her going downhill. She's a downhill runner, just can crush it with the best of them. And she sees each of her footsteps as brush strokes, and she can see color uh down the trail as she's just setting like Strava crown records or whatever.
Yeah,
So
that's
there's a beauty to it for sure.
yeah. Speaking of that, that made me think of this ad that I've been seeing all over Facebook by Trail Runner Magazine, or I forgot what it was called, the magazine. But the thing is, how to run uphill, and all the comments are like, it's like how to get
Don't.
better at running uphill, and all the comments are, you just run uphill, you just run up and down.
How do you get better? Yeah, you keep running uphill. That's like running. How do you get better at running? You keep running every
Yeah,
day. Like
yeah, yeah. It's funny.
uh it's funny because I was the runner that started with heart rate training.
Yeah,
I hit the tiniest of hill, my heart rate monitor went off, I had to walk. It was
yeah,
like I felt horrible about myself. I didn't think I'd get there. And then fast forward like 5 years forward, and I mean, I was the person that was always power hiking, like power hike to the top, like don't be an idiot and try to like run up the hills. But I got to the
yeah,
point where like small footsteps, and like you hit a point where if you're consistent, you're not getting hurt, you're being smart with your training, like you can do easier type running and you're going uphill and it's not actually like blowing out everything. And you can get to that point where you're actually running uphill and people are like, how did you go up that? That was 300, 400 feet.
yeah,
Um, so like, don't think because your heart rate monitor is going off now that like it's impossible. Like it takes time. You have to look at the longer term perspective, but like I'm living proof. You can basically be normal and have a family life, work life, and figure out some type of balance to become a better runner.
yeah.
Um, that's
Yeah,
probably really long winded. Sorry.
no, it's all right. Yeah, a lot of people getting right into running, they at least me, I immediately bought a bunch of books, started watching all these YouTube videos, Ginger Runner, Billy Yang films, started looking into heart rate training and all this stuff. And one thing I learned, and when I first started running, I think I was 14, 15, and I tried to do the heart rate thing, and I'd run, and my heart rate would go up super high. It would go too high because it wasn't easy heart rate. And so I would stop and start walking. And what I learned is that if you're a new runner and you're going off of heart rate training, don't worry about that stuff. Just run and
Yeah.
then give it like a year, 2, 3, and then you can start including heart rate training. But in the beginning, you don't have to worry about all that. Just keep it
Unless
simple.
you're like doctors saying, hey, buddy, we're gonna put you on Lipitor. Like you're the youngest person I'd ever put on Lipitor. That
Yeah.
was that was the only that's why I started off a little easy. Like, I didn't want to blow out any valves or anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But I agree. I mean, a lot of it's just starting. Like
yeah.
that's the hardest part is starting, not getting injured, and just like continuing to build consistency. Would you not say consistency is kind of the key to
Yeah.
all of this?
Yeah, consistency, it's definitely huge, and one of the big things is just not overthinking it, like, just relax. I heard this guy, he said, "You wanna know what the biggest lie I've ever heard was?" I said, "What?" And he said, "The biggest lie I've ever heard is that it's not that simple." And what he means by that is that it is that simple.
I
Everything is
had
simple,
to
but
think
there's
about
a
that too hard, actually.
yeah, there's a oh, I thought about it really hard. Yeah, it took me a little bit to process things, so, Um, but there's a step and there's processes to everything, and it's simple. Everything's simple. Just relax and just go step by step, one step in front of the other, and don't move too fast.
I kid you not, I've had like 20, probably 25 people reach out at some point and be like, I thought ultra running was only for these like super highly trained elite runners, but I saw you and I thought, oh, if he can do it, I can do it, which ultimately is a giant insult, but I take it as a compliment because
Yeah,
there's 25 people out there that went after ultras that were like, this is like superhuman, but if that normal dude can do it, then I what's he doing? Maybe I can do it. So I think it's getting after it, and like you said, there is no secret to this. It's just getting out. And I truly think reevaluating your why constantly, finding a why that motivates you intrinsically. Boom. That's all. I mean, you really need to work towards a goal. I'm very goal driven, so maybe I'm a little biased, but I think you got to have something that gets you out of bed on those days where you're like, I'm sore, tired, and then your brain starts coming up with every excuse possible. And yeah, I mean, it's that type of mentality that kicks in also. It trains you throughout that process. So when you're at mile 75 and your brain's like, you could drop out right now. Your kids, your wife, they're at the hotel or whatever. Like, why are you doing this? You're selfish. Like,
yeah,
you hit a point during longer races where your brain goes into like self preservation mode and it's trying to convince you to stop. And so I think the same thing goes for training. Your brain is awesome. We're all very, very smart people when it comes to convincing ourselves to not do something. Like, we're all really good at that. And the trick is figuring out like higher level thinking, like, okay, I thought this. Why did I think this? How do I circumvent this in the future? Like, and pre program responses in your brain. So the next time you wake up and you have that response, you've pre programmed your response already to your brain. So,
yeah. I mean,
because there is an animalistic side of us that can convince us to do anything, and you just have to be able to pre-program, certain responses that circumvent you, like sabotaging yourself.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's no different than waking up for work in the morning. Like you have to go,
Oh,
and
I could
you don't want to. You're sitting there in
call
bed
off sick
sleeping.
right now.
You don't want to wake up, like, you don't want to go to work, or for me, like, I don't want to go to school. Guess what? You got to get up and do it anyways. Same thing for running, but the only thing that makes it harder for running is that it's optional for some people. So,
It's why the goal is so important. You gotta like, so what I've done a lot of times, I need to start posting on social. Maybe you've inspired me to do this. Um, I have a chalkboard where my goals go right next to my coffee maker because if anyone knows me well, like when I get out of bed, I'm not jumping out to do anything other than go grab coffee. Like, and
yeah,
so first thing I do is I'm watching the coffee like drip down. I'm cheap. I buy like the cheapest coffee maker, so I have to hit start a lot of times. And I'm watching it drip down and I'm looking at my goals. And that's how I start off every day. And I think if you're looking at that and subconsciously, I'm a huge believer in the power of like subconsciously working on problems in your mind,
yeah,
and then also subconsciously just like ingraining goals, because then when you open the fridge to make a food selection, your brain has seen Badwater 135, 2022, like July or whenever it is, like it it is making, you're subconsciously selecting things and making choices throughout your day that are for a deeper meaning. So it's all about that goal. If it's not important to you, it's not going to hit your subconscious level, and then it's
yeah,
not really going to affect your decision making and your life.
yeah, yeah. And manifestation, which I think is kind of connected to that, it's very real. It's real. If you wake up every day and you say a goal or you have it written down and you see it every single day, obviously if you sit there and don't do anything, it's not going to happen. But if you see it every day and you have a desire and a fire inside of you to do it, it's going to happen. It doesn't matter what that goal is. It can be any,
The
it can be,
desire and fire that is the key to all of this. But yes, it does manifest. It's really, really weird.
yeah,
But
like if you want
you
to,
can kind of bend the world whatever direction you want if you want it that bad. But it's how bad do you want it? It's up to you.
I think that's a
Like
book.
it's you. Yeah. Yeah, we're branching out here. We're going towards the
We're going in the deep end. The late night deep end.
I'm like halfway through this. Come on.
This is like the like whenever I was a kid, we had Cartoon Network, and then after 10 p.m. it would go into I forgot what it's called, Adult View or something like
Adult
that.
Swim?
Adult Swim, yeah.
No, this is like the cable access shows where like they'll put anything out on the air back in the day.
Yeah.
You just have to like send in your VHS and they'll like
Yeah.
broadcast it.
Yeah.
This is dead hours. No, I truly I think you're right though. You can manifest things.
Yeah.
And I truly think again it's the goal that's the most important, but then reminding yourself daily about why you're making the choices you're making. Like you can easily go to McDonald's every day if you wanted to, but you have to have things pointing you and inspiring you to do certain actions throughout the day that will get you closer to that goal. And I truly have lived that whole experience and know it can work. So, and I know the opposite can work. Like 2020, I was out of routine, didn't have any goals on the horizon because I felt like as part of the community and maybe someone that's being heard more than others, like I it I felt like a weird obligation not to go one way or the other on all the COVID
Yeah.
stuff. And like, I just didn't know I like everyone else. And I felt like going out strong and like trying to show up to races and like whether you wear a mask or not a mask, like I'm not smart enough to know that shit. Like I felt a lot of pressure in 2020 that people didn't see behind the scenes. And in retrospect, it's probably who the hell cares? Like this guy's not sick or anything. So um there's a lot going on in 2020 that got me personally out of my routine. And you know what? I think I've honestly learned a lot more than if all those routines were going well. And I'm super excited for 2022. It's coming up.
Yeah.
I'm like ready to put my foot on the accelerator. I keep like holding back, because once I go, you of all people, you've seen the TV show, you know I'm like full bore, like
Yeah.
going for it.
I call it a bull mentality. Just put your head down.
Totally.
Yeah.
See that red? Just going for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, earlier I was thinking like if someone really wanted to like be the president of the United States, they could just write it down, post it up. They'll get there. They'll be nice. But
They would be the dumbest no, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't wish that again on anyone. Like, oh, talk about a horrible job. Like
yeah,
we all think we have a bad job. That would be the worst job. You
president of the
can
United
never
States.
make everyone happy with that job. That's for sure.
You
No
know,
matter what.
yeah, I heard. Okay, so they get paid $400,000 a year every year after, but they also have to have their own Secret Service agents for the rest of their life.
Just think about that. You have people that want to like cut you down at any moment.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Do you take $400,000? I
And
I choose no. I don't need $400,000 and feel like at any coffee shop they could drop something in or like whatever. Like
yeah,
that's awful. Awful way to live. Ignorance is bliss.
yeah, yeah. I guess like one of the cool things is they get to go down the history books. But like I said before, all things will pass, and so not all the presidents will be remembered. Only the ones that did some like insane things. So
Made a positive change for the world or whatever. Yeah. No, otherwise you're just a number. I mean, it's just like these races we do, like, all right, even if you go to a race and the person wins and sets new course record by like 100 hours, come on, like
Like that's awesome,
in
but
retrospect, yeah, 100 years from now well, first of all, is that race even going to last like 5 years? But, like, I think it's silly. We get these things built up in our heads, and they can cause a lot of anxiety for a lot of people, to the point where they're like, I don't want to sign up for a race. What if this happens? What if this happens? Um, they fear, like, what is my Facebook friend from high school that I haven't talked to in 20 years going to think about my race result or my finish line photo? Like, ultimately, just try to life's too short, and you know you have to be in a good place to then help other people. And I think our community is all about that. It's get yourself in a good place, and a lot of times running gets us all into a lot better outlook, but then help out others in our community. It really, it's powerful, and I think it branches out from there. That's what I'm all about.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And you brought up talking about like a lot of people that make good impacts in the world, and it made me think. I saw this post yesterday, and it was Albert Einstein. It was a quote from Albert Einstein, and what he had done is he wrote down 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4, and he went down the list, and then he got down to 9 + 10, and he put it equals 21. And everyone in the class was like, "Hey, you got that wrong. It's 19, not 21." And he was like, "This is a lesson to show y'all. No one congratulated me for all the wins I had, but everyone pointed out the one wrong I
One
did."
failure. Yeah,
And that puts a lot of things in perspective when it comes to like just the media and everything like that. But what I was tying that into though is like even in running, if you have all these great things, and let's say you were to have a DNF or something bad were to happen, don't put too much pressure on that one thing when you have all these other great things
totally.
added to it.
Well, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I feel for the elite ultra runners. I talked to a lot of them,
Yeah,
and it's like, you're only as good as your last race, which is like ridiculous. But I think a lot of sponsors are finally waking up to that.
yeah,
That, like, hey, this person doesn't have to do like 8 races a year, all which are 50 miles plus, and like
yeah,
burn out in 2 years. Like, I think sponsors are finally figuring this out. But like from my own personal perspective, like some of my biggest DNFs and failures were right before Bighorn 100, which then led into Bigfoot 200 and Tahoe 200 and Moab 240. Like, no one has ever mentioned to me that I DNF'd, was it Georgia Death Race? It was a horrible, horrible DNF. I totally blew it. I didn't eat enough food. I had an awesome pacer that came out to help me. Like, I was in kind of the home stretch and just bonked out of my mind. And missed a cutoff. I still think I made it in to that aid station, but we'll say that for another day. Um, no one cares.
yeah,
No one has ever mentioned it to me. And without that DNF to light the fire under me, maybe when Big Horn 100 got hard, that's a video, by the way, you should watch on YouTube that I put out. It's called, like, I forget actually what I called. Something in the muddy. It was a mud fest. That's all I'll say.
yeah,
It was like mud down to your ankles for, I think it was like 6 to 8 miles. So like, without that Georgia Death Race DNF, I don't know if I would have like really felt the need to finish that. But then that hiking and just like sufferfest and getting through that sleep deprivation training, going for 36 hours straight, uh that prepped me so that when things got hard for Bigfoot 200 and Tahoe 200 and Moab 240, I was like, I had perspective. So same thing for training. Like, don't always go train when it's most ideal. Like, it's okay when it's super hot, as long as you're smart, or if it's raining or if it's a little muddy. Like, your training shouldn't be easy. And I always go back to thinking about Tiger Woods of all people. I don't know why him, but him hitting balls, practicing, and his dad just like he would go back, take a shot, and his dad would shout in his backswing or like make things awful on purpose so that he was ready when it came to the actual like game time.
Wow.
And I don't know, there's probably a lot more going on with Earl Woods, but uh, you know, the point is train not in the most ideal circumstances at times so that you have perspective when it comes to things getting tough during the race. Because you can always reference back, like, oh, it's hard, but you remember that one time that you were doing XYZ, like that will get you through tough situations, like very tough situations.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like when we're training, it's better just train harder than the actual race is, so that way when the race comes, it's like, oh, like this is easy. So like, yeah, get
Totally.
those ankle weights out, get that weight vest out, go for it, make it
I don't
harder.
I don't do the weights quite yet, but I could see myself going that way. I'm not like built for that quite yet. I'll
Yeah,
break, but I mean, I always tell myself suffer now a little bit or suffer a lot during the race. So like, do you want to enjoy this race as cherry on top of this whole training block and all your goals?
yeah,
Like, I would much rather suffer a little dehydration during my training or whatever it is. Maybe going out too hot for runs, too fast is what I was saying. And then actually be reminded, like, don't go out like you did on that stupid 10 miler that you did and suffered for 9 miles because mile one felt so good. Like
yeah.
like like your bad training runs teach you so many lessons that you can then apply during race day.
Yep, that's for sure. Yeah, and there's probably someone listening right now in the middle of their long run, having a terrible long run, and they just heard that.
They're
And
in mile
they're
one. They just went out hard of their 10 miler. That one person. Ah, that's great.
All right, man. I think I'm gonna have to wrap it up. I have a limit on the recording here, so I'm gonna wrap it up. But before I do,
Hey, happy to be on here for so long
dude, yeah,
and truly appreciate it. Seriously.
yeah, thanks so much. The conversation went great, man, and we hit a lot of topics. We went off way off the deep end, but it was a lot of fun. That's what podcasts are. So they're just a lot of fun to listen to. I like the ones that go into all the crazy avenues that they can. So I really appreciate that.
Welcome to my mind, my friend. The ADD mind will go down any avenue.
Remind me a lot like Run Bum, Sean Blanton. That man. He's wild. His mind is just all over the place. He's super
It's like
creative.
Georgia death race.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But before we get off though, I want you to leave the viewers with one piece of advice. It could be motivational, just anything.
I would say don't don't be fearful of failure. That like if you're questioning whether you should do something, I mean, if you think of it as part of the process, like in obtaining, it's a stepping stone essentially in getting towards whatever that greater goal is, that you're gonna have like a totally different perspective on whatever you're getting after. So don't be scared to miss a stepping stone. It's not a big deal. You get your foot wet, but you'll get back on the path towards whatever that greater goal is. And like truly life is too short. I think that's like the biggest lesson that I've learned throughout all my miles. Like that's what got me on the trail is like my dad's health scare giving me such perspective that it's like, it's now or like I can keep putting this off. So like just get after it, and you'll surprise yourself. So hopefully that's helpful.
Appreciate that, man. All right, everybody. That was Rob Steger. Super awesome guy. I'm going to leave all his links below if you want to give him a follow, check him out. And I encourage you all to go listen to his podcast. He has a really awesome podcast, and he has a lot of awesome runners on there. But that's all I have for you guys. If you want to support the show, we got the Patreon link down below. Also, scroll down, leave us a rating on Apple Podcast, and share this with some running buddies. If you really enjoyed the show, go ahead and share it around. But that's everything, and I will see you guys on the next episode.